number 9 bone stock. Thank you for watching on ONTrack Weekly.
Good. What's going on, everybody? Kim K here with you on GeForce TV for ONTrack Weekly. We got things working this week. We are here chatting everything motorsports as we really start to wrap up the 2024 season across all of Ontario racing. We officially bidded adieu to the 2024 season for the Sunset Speedway. Unfortunately, we're already at that point of the year where tracks are done and velocity is come and gone as well. Championships have been decided. I want to thank Austin Janet for the intro as part of our featured driver, Bone Stock Racer out at Sunset. And thank you guys for tuning in tonight. It's always a lot of fun that we get to do this when we get to talk racing. We also finished up the Ontario Sportsman Series 2024 Championship. Can-Am Midgets finished up their championship even though they didn't get to run. We will have the finishing of Full Throttle's championships. Got half of their championships done this past weekend. They've got the other half, and then Flamborough has their championships wrapping up on Saturday as well. Part of their big championship night. So you'll see on the scrolling screen, we finished Delaware on Friday night and wrapped it all up on Saturday with the Bone Stock double feature, including the Pumpkin Smasher. Some pretty big crashes out at Delaware Speedway, unfortunately, but luckily everybody, as far as we know, everybody is okay. There's been a lot of massive crashes the last couple of weeks, and unfortunately it's definitely taken a toll. We've seen a lot of pretty bent up race cars, and unfortunately that's no different towards the end of the season. We still do have at least 2 weekends to go here with Frosttoberfest and, of course, Autumn Colors Classic. You'll see that Autumn Colors is still listed here on our events. I know it says events this week, but what we're going to put on there is ACC, so people are aware. Get yourself out to Peterborough Speedway for Autumn Colors. Get yourself out to Flamborough Speedway. We'll put that up next week once, obviously, the championships are decided this weekend at Flamborough. And, of course, Full Throttle Motor Speedway, they also wrapped up their points championships for half their divisions this week. The Crazy Trains, Mini Trucks, Thunder Trucks, the Junior Late Models, and the Ontario Late Model Association, they all finished theirs this past Saturday. And then they're going to finish their the rest of the divisions, including your Pro Sprints, Street Stocks, Hot Rods, Mini Stocks, Pure Stocks. That's all going to be this weekend at Full Throttle Motor Speedway. And again, we can talk about the championships for Flamborough Speedway, their Pure Stock, Mini Stock Championships, Soma Modifieds, Canadian Vintage Modifieds, and Pro Late Models, all to be decided. You see there on the screen. Autumn Colors, October 11th, 12th, and 13th out at Peterborough Speedway to officially wrap up the 2024 racing season in Ontario. As you see there is your championship night for Full Throttle Motor Speedway this upcoming Saturday as well. So you've got Flamborough and Full Throttle. Make a trip up there if you want to go and see some really tight short track action. If not, head over to Flamborough Speedway as they wrap up their championship. We'll see if they're going to have any invaders come on down for those events. Obviously, with championship night, you don't want to have a bunch of racers come in and potentially interfere. We'll try and get those results up right now. I know Flamborough has theirs. I don't know if we're going to see. We'll take a look at the point standings right now in certain divisions that still have to go. We know a couple of championships pretty well decided, including Grayson Mason winning the championship for the Junior Late Models out at Varney, Owen Corriveau. We're going to have to figure out who's going to take a couple other of those division titles, especially because next week we know Mason Culver, he picked up the truck championship, the Thunder Trucks championship, defeating the King Jason Vale, who went undefeated in that division for several seasons, and did it in a pretty good fashion. But Jason Vale not without a championship in 2024. They take the Crazy Train Championship at Full Throttle Motor Speedway. Obviously, next week they've got a couple more classes they're going to figure out and decide who's going to win those championships. We'll take a look at the point standings there and see who is leading and who's in pretty good point standings for the upcoming week. We've also got, as Brandon Feeney mentions here, Applefest at Brighton Speedway taking place. Wrap up their season on the dirt. It was it's been a pretty great season so far, but I think everybody, like myself included, we're starting to feel it. It's starting to get to us a little bit, the fatigue and the wear and tear, and everybody is starting to I think tempers are a lot quicker to be lost. We saw that this past weekend at Velocity at Sunset. We don't really want to see some of the conduct that was taking place on the racetrack and off of it. It doesn't matter the circumstance. Obviously, issues happen on the racetrack, but it's all about how we conduct ourselves. And there was a couple of situations across multiple nights where it wasn't what we want to see. We don't want to see people and young racers especially acting the way some of them did. I understand. I completely understand. And we have to be very thankful as well, because there was a massive, and I mean massive, wreck in the Outlaw Midgets early on. And the fact that we didn't have multiple drivers injured in that was very lucky. A lot of sore drivers, including Rob Harrison, Kevin Spees was involved pretty massively. Mike Homewood involved. I have not seen wrecks that severe in the Outlaw Midgets, and probably since Jessica James and when she had her wreck at Sunset Speedway. Those types of cars, seeing wrecks like that, it just takes your breath away, unfortunately. And any sprint car wreck, on the dirt, those are massive. And we have had some massive crashes these last couple of weeks. And unfortunately, I know like Hooligan had been put that car together. It was a newer car to him. I would believe it was a Glenn Raymond's old car. And unfortunately, it didn't take very long to get damaged, and just a massive blow to that division to have a wreck that early. We had Oscar on the dirt. They didn't have the best showing in terms of cars, but I'll tell you, the racing looked phenomenal. Our boy Brandon Feeney, who's in the chat, was actually in that race in the 09 for Dan Price. He said it wasn't the best night, unfortunately for him. Blew the motor in his hot rod at the end of the night, and that sucks. He's been trying to really work on coming back racing, and hopefully he'll still be able to do that. But Tyler Hahn, once again, getting the victory in the Oscar Hot Rods. It's been an amazing season for Tyler. The Kodiak, maybe not so much for the hot rods out at Sunset for Tyler, but he was running really for the points championship in Oscar after his season kind of went sideways. It would be nice to win 2 championships, but best finish for Connor Ellis, finishing in 5th place. Excellent to see, and Connor's been somebody who they have been working at that car for the entire year. He's had a couple of good runs. It's I think Connor's probably going to be kicking himself over the V8 stock race that he was in prime real estate for, picking up a big win there and just overdrove. I think it was turn 1. But the hot rod division as a whole, I think people need to watch out for, because right now, I had this conversation with a couple of people in that the hot rod division. I'm trying to remember who exactly. Maybe it was a Randy Butler and Doug Butler at Sunset talking about how this division is just blown up. We've got cars all over. You've got them being used for the V8 stock class at Delaware Speedway, the United 8s at Sauble Speedway, the hot rods at Varney, the hot rods in Oscar, and the hot rods at Sunset. So hot rod racing is alive and well. It's just a matter of, is there too much out there? I think one of the conversations that we'll have to realize here, and this is probably a reality for a lot of people, is touring is not that attractive anymore, and a lot of racers don't want to travel, and I don't blame them. It is a lot on everybody involved, a lot of travel, a lot of costs, and is it worth doing all of that in the end? And obviously, there's been some significant changes with having hot rod divisions locally, but I think Sunset, by all means, their counts are looking phenomenal for next year as well. And without a doubt, as we talked with Spencer Lewis and Brendan Doherty on our Stickers and Scuffs podcast last week, that the remarkable thing is that there's been some nights where the racing has been a little chaotic, took a little longer than it should have. People were driving a little bit crazy, a little bit stupid, and they have wrecked race cars. However, how many times they've had race of the night is pretty remarkable. It definitely was a lot of fun. I think that for myself, Sunset Speedway this year obviously was there quite a bit, and I will say that I was blown away with a lot of the races. For the most part, we did have a lot of respect out there. There was some shenanigans towards later in the year, the last couple of weeks, and obviously I completely understand that it's a racing thing, but we also have to keep our wits about us on and off the racetrack. Everybody's in the same boat here. Everybody wants to go out there and finish the season strong. We don't need to be wrecking people. We don't need to be fighting people. I understand that there is a lot of young racers out there that feel the need that they need to show that they're not going to get pushed around. We had a couple of situations this weekend where young racers got involved in pretty severe dust-ups and showed their displeasure. And I completely understand doing that. There is a level, though, that you get to, and then you kind of have to calm down. I would say that a couple of times that actions were taken that they didn't need to. You don't want to hurt yourself in the end and your sponsors, and you don't want to look like a fool. People know you're mad. They can see it. The racers can see it. What I would go out and say is leave officials out of it and leave especially safety crews out of it. I mean, you saw a situation last week about safety crew where somebody was pushed, safety crew member, and we got to try and not do that type of stuff when you're trying to attract people to the sport, and when you got a lot of young fans, a lot of young racers at the racetrack. Let's not teach them that. Let's teach them how we want to respond. Yeah, you're always going to have racers that are going to react that in violent ways, in non-violent ways. People are always going to have a reaction. That's part of racing. But let's try and not have situations like that. And I love seeing people chirp on social media that haven't raced and like to claim that that's what this person is like, that's what this family is like. It's not your place. And I've said this, and we've said this time and time again. The racers are who need to sort it out, not the fans, not the crew members, the racers. And unfortunately, what we tend to have happen is crew members like to jump in, family members like to jump in. It's not between them. It's between the two racers on the racetrack. Whether or not there's anything that comes of what happened this weekend, I don't know. But you can feel attention. You can see it. Like I felt it a lot this weekend. You can feel that people are tired. They're wore out. They're kind of done with the season. And there will be people that won't go to Frosttoberfest. There will be people that won't go to ACC because once their points championship is done, they're done. And I'm completely okay with that. You don't have to go out there and run if it's not in the budget, and if you're mentally you're done. We need to consider the amount of young eyes that are watching that. Yeah, sure, it's the same thing when you go to a hockey game, same thing when you go to a basketball game. But I think they've tried to get a lot of violence out of that. Yeah, sure, hockey was always going to have it, but we want to try and show a little bit more respect for everybody, and that does go with and as Ashley does say, there needs to be strict consequences for online bullying as well. You are not exempt from what you post online. Partners, look. We at Sticker and Scuff, so for example, we have drivers that represent us, but there are certain actions that we don't want to see. Now, imagine if you are a corporation and all of a sudden you see a video of a driver with your brand on it doing something that's not kosher, that's not appropriate, that's not representative of your brand. And yes, there are certain racers this year that have done stuff that we are not okay with. We aren't the ones that are paying them tons of bucks, right? There are partners that do that. So you have to put that into perspective. And unfortunately, what we do see is people like to go off on social media. I always would suggest to use your words very carefully. You don't have to go out there. You can be upset. You can absolutely be mad about the situation because that sucks. Everybody is in the same situation. They have limited parts. They have limited time, limited money. You spent all these hours working on this car. You didn't even make it out of the whole weekend without a scratch on the car. And guess what? You're going to do it all over again the next weekend. Why? Because you love it. And as Nathaniel says, wording is everything. You can be subtle and state that somebody got into you. But when we go out there and we throw accusations and we go out there and we say certain things, all it does is welcome more people to the party, because that's the generation, that's the world we're in right now, is people will just talk big on their keyboard and they won't talk big in person. We've seen it multiple times. Track owners need to be hold accountable, need to hold the bullies accountable as well. I know there are policies in play, but it's also needing to be enforced. So Ashley puts out a great point. It's another situation with tracks, though, where do they want to be policing? They shouldn't have to be. And that's the reality of it. It's as sad as it is to say, but Ashley is correct here that the tracks do need to enforce that. But at the end of the day, they all have their own jobs to deal with. A lot of people that work at the tracks aren't there full time. So now they want to move on from their racing season, and now they're dealing with stuff that's been happening. Now, if there's shit that's been going on since the beginning of the season, it needs to be brought to the attention of the track, and it needs to be dealt with. And unfortunately, it's the same situation. We are dealing with grown-ass adults here a lot of the times. And why grown-ass adults are acting this way, all it does is show the young racers that that's how they can get away with it. They can act like that. I don't think you see the stuff that we saw this past weekend if it's strict. You don't do that stuff or you get a ban or you get some disciplinary action. Everybody likes to shit on NASCAR, but NASCAR is one of those places where they do a lot of that. And your conduct is brought into the conversation on and off the racetrack. And if you are not conducive to what that track or that series, that division, that sponsor wants, guess what? You won't be racing there. Probationary periods are something that I think is something that's very important at racetracks for disciplinary reasons. Now, through the amount of complaints that I have heard, I wouldn't want to be in that position. I want to give a point, and I want to throw this out there because I don't know if they have their own flagman, but I just saw him post, and he got there in record time, and I want everybody in the chat, if he was the guy on the flag stand during the Outlaw Midget race, but I want everybody to give an applause and a thank you to Matt Bray. Matt, if again by the video it looked like it was a sunset flagman, that huge wreck, Matt Bray was there. I swear the cars weren't even stopped yet, and he was at Mikey Homewood's car, Kevin Spees' car, trying to see if they were okay. People forget a lot of the situations that happen on the racetrack, that these are still racers involved and they have families, and especially Homewood has young kids there. And you need to give a lot of love to people that do that. Peterborough doesn't put up with much nonsense. They do a good job. Well, and that's the situation that you need everywhere, Charlie, right? And it was going back and forth on topics here, but Matt Bray, if that was Matt, kudos, and thank you, because people tend to forget. I mean, these flagmen, they're the guys that see a lot of this stuff. They're the ones that have to throw the caution flags and throw the reds and get down there. The ambulance at Sunset's a little bit harder to get to because they've got to pull out and back out onto the racetrack. So he is normally the first one that's there. And I've seen it with Ben a couple of times this year where he's right there. And Matt was there right when that caution happened. So major kudos for Matt Bray, and thank him for what he did for the Outlaw Midget racers and making sure that they were okay. People will say, oh yeah, he's just doing his duty. Well, there's a little more than that. It's you could wait and see, or you can make sure that everybody's okay. And he did that, and I know the drivers are appreciative. Nick Spees has mentioned Nick's dad was in one of those wrecks. Split seconds he was down at my dad's car, and Mikey's checking on them. That's what you want to see. So major kudos to Matt Bray, and thank you for your work in making sure the drivers were safe. A situation like that where cars are vulnerable on the track and then get hit, and driver's side, which you never want to see. Like I said, it was nice to see that the official was there right away. as we talked about, like I said, Charlie mentions that you don't put up with a lot of BS, and that's what needs to happen. I mean, I understand that series need to do the same thing. Touring divisions, you have to be strict on stuff, or else people are going to get away with whatever actions they feel necessary. And disciplinary reasons, you take a look. APC is very strict on their disciplinary. They will post. Delaware as well. Delaware has no qualms about suspending a driver for a week. And Daryl Timmermans makes sure that people know. They post, they put it on their website, the penalty reports for tech infractions and for racing and behavioral. And that's the way every track needs to run. I understand that people want to have stuff, hush hush, but at the same time, we cannot allow certain acts to continue to happen, especially when you have potential new partners there, new racers there. And then we have people, like I said, going on social media. I had a driver who won a race show me messages that she was getting. Yes, she was getting. And it's disgusting. I just let people, if they've won, they've won. It is not your place to, feel a need to make someone feel bad or attack them because they won. They beat your favorite driver. Unfortunately, what's really rampant in the motorsports world is rumors. Very bad in terms of he said, she said, they said, and you don't really know what's true. And there's a lot of it. I have learned in the last couple of weeks there is so much of it. You hear about tech not being truly tech. You have people that have favorites, that they have this, they have that, and you hear it all the time. And if it's a lack of integrity, then people need to bring that up. I mean, I understand it does no service if people are constantly feeling that something is not correct, yet they don't say anything about it. I understand, though, that there's a lot of tricky situations. I don't agree with posting issues about a racetrack on social media. And if you have a problem with the way something was conducted, how is it benefiting you to go on and blab on social media and talk crap about that place? Or about that driver, about that team, or that official, that series? It doesn't help anybody in that circumstance. A lot of people do it, and I understand, because it's easier to get people to go on your side because you're posting, and most people want to be very supportive. They do. Most people will if they're your friend, they're going to take your side. They will do it. But protests are there for a reason. Arguments are there for a reason. Officials are there for a reason. Call. Speak to the officials. Don't hold on. This is the one thing I think a lot of racers are doing, is they then hold on to that when it could just be a miscommunication that entire time. The amount of racers this year that I've seen that have had a conflict and then are buddy-buddy the next week, because funny enough, they talked about it. And you know what? That works. We don't need you, people on social media, to fuel the fire. Ugh. Sometimes it's like talking to a brick wall. This is elementary stuff. We dealt with this in elementary school. If you don't have something nice to say, don't say it. You give yourself a little bit of time before you start talking to that person that you had an argument with. You talk about it, you move on. Done. But what we like to do is we like to let it fester. And we like to go to this person, this person, this person, and say, oh my God, I can't believe that, da, 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 da. And then you have a podcaster like myself who then people like to message and say, guess what's happening? And you know what that does? It stresses me out. Because I'm here trying to focus on the positives, and all people can send me is the negatives. We don't like to focus on the negatives here. We try to do is talk about what's happened at a racetrack. We try to talk about what's happened this season, and we try to make the whole sport better. We try to make everybody in it better. Now, whether or not you think that that is better, sure, fair. But there are certain things from an outside perspective that don't look very good. And people getting into a contest over which vulgarity they can throw at each other on social media is not something that's going to attract a major partnership to a racetrack. They don't want to deal with people bickering and bitching and going back and forth at each other, calling each other names, like Ashley says, at a daycare. They want to deal with professionals, people that can represent the brand, the company in multiple facets, not just on the racetrack. Matt Bray has been the starter at Sauble Speedway this year. He's been the starter at Sunset as well. And he says being a starter is not a very easy job. It's very stressful, very scary. Your biggest fear every night is that a car is going up the wall and taking out the flag stand. And we almost saw that this year. Scott Mackey, and all the love to Scott Mackey, finishing up his career at Delaware Speedway, had Dale Shaw about take the flag stand out. We saw the flag stand at Varney legitimately had a piece knocked off of it during the OLMA event earlier this year. There we go. Okay, so Tracy Ellis, because Tracy is a know-it-all, she knows it all. I mean, legitimately, I go to Tracy Ellis for a lot of things. Tracy Ellis, you ask her about this person, this, she knows. She's bringing up a very good point here. Bone Stocks at Flamme a few years ago almost had or did have a major sponsor pull out of Frostfest due to online posts. Stop acting like a bunch of idiots. On track and off. You want to attract people to the product. And by acting like an idiot, you scare people away. If you're going out there and you're swearing back and forth, you're fighting, and parents are there with their young kids, all of a sudden that young kid that was so excited to see that young racer, their parents are going, nope, we're not taking you to see this race car driver again. It's all about that perspective. And yes, during the moment, it gets heated. And I know because I've seen it. I've seen it in every division. Every division, somebody gets hot. Now, I'll tell you, there was one driver who was, I couldn't believe he was so calm after it. And he just said, that was dirty. I mean, I'm mad, but that was dirty. And I couldn't believe it. And I thought to myself, that is what I want to see in a racer. Yes, that racer is a mini stock champion for this year. He knows who he is, but he was so reserved and wasn't going off the handle. It's the guys that are going off the handle, guys and gals that are going off the handle, that is killing it. Yes, Matt Bray, absolutely. One of the things that we talked to with Spencer and Brendan, and they said it, we are dinosaurs right now. Racing is a dying sport, and people need to remember that. They need to stop thinking that it's not going to have any sort of issue. If we lose multiple tracks in the coming years, none of this should be surprising. As terrible as it is to say that, but look at the conduct. Sure, you're going to have people that are going to love what they see. That happens in every sport. But for the price points, for how long racing is taking, for the time and the cost that it takes to put a car together, you're losing people at rapid paces. You're losing partnerships. You're losing tracks. And we've seen it in the US. This has happened where tracks have shut down because the conduct of their racers and the people in the pits drove them to close the track. Why would you want to continue to deal with behavior that isn't acceptable? Now, I will go out and say this is not a regular occurrence. I have not seen this on every single week. In fact, there were a lot of weeks this year where I was actually really impressed with the amount of clean, hard racing there was and the amount of respect. And there is a good amount of young racers that are like that. I'll tell you, I could watch a couple of names go side by side. Phil Givens, for example, side by side with Chris Allard and Aiden Harper, Calvin Reeser. They put on a phenomenal bone stock race this past year. Sean Taylor and Jacob Sutcliffe, side by side to the line. They gave each other room. They didn't slam into each other. And we have this opinion right now that we have to act like what we see at, say, Bowman Gray or big time NASCAR. They can wreck $1 million race cars because they have that budget. You don't. So why are we going out there acting like that? Those that have money in the racing scene should be looking to help those that don't, not tear them down, not destroy them. And you can't tell me that that hasn't happened this year, because it has. You got a lot of great people in motorsports, a lot of very, very smart people, a lot of very respectable people. But remember, look how many kids are at the racetrack each and every week. You've got junior racers in the junior sprint division out at not full throttle, Grand Bend. Junior sprints, tons of them. Junior late models, Sauble, Varney, Sunset, Peterborough. Look how many kids are there now. This is the time that we should be showing those kids how to be marketable, how to act on the racetrack and off of it, how to be marketable for new potential partners, because that's how you get them. You get them when the kids are young and they can move up with those partnerships. And the amount of young racers that we have that are marketable is phenomenal. And what you can do is, by having a Bandolero and a junior late model division, you can have multiple places for those kids to go now. So if you have a junior sprint division that then you have coming in a Bandolero traveling division, get a couple of those kids in a Bandolero for the weekend. You can have it so that your junior late models are your 5 to 12. And now we have a spot, in my opinion, Bandoleros, put them in for the 12 to 17 range. Put them in for something in between junior late models and mini stocks / bone stocks. And as Nathaniel brings up the Delaware Junior Racing League, where they had classes. And Tegan Ellis talked to me about this. Connor Ellis talked to me about this. Nathaniel talked to me about this. That this, Cody Wilds, I think, as well, that they taught you how to race. You had an educational class that you were taking. You had your races as well. I love that idea. I honestly think that that's something really cool, because what we can have is we can show our young racers how to be marketable. We can show them how to take care of their car, how to work on their cars, how to help each other. I'll be honest, I struggle as a race mom, track mom to my sponsored boys, sponsor and track partner. I'm human and do have a short fuse, but I've worked really hard at trying to keep it in check. It's not the easiest thing though, Ashley, because at the end of the day, those are still your kids. Those are still people that you know. Those are still people that you want to be safe. However, I've seen it a lot of the times as well, where we had a situation this past weekend where a family member was going after another family member of two competing racers. I will never in a million years be okay with that. That's never okay. Never. Talk to kids, walk down and talk to whoever you had the issue with. Yes, exactly. And you know what? A lot of the times you have to cool off. Oh, there was a situation on Friday night where we probably should have had two drivers separated and they should have not been near each other because they needed to talk it out before they were interacting. And I think the situation, it continues week in and week out, right? I mean, are we going to see that type of situation next year? And unfortunately we are, because you see it happens every week on short track racing now, that somebody is doing something that, and listen, Bowman Gray is the biggest culprit of this, where it's become a comedy of sorts, that they welcome it. That is part of the attraction there, is you wreck your opponent and you fight your opponent, you tear up the equipment. But there, I expect it. Here, we don't have guys with budgets to do that. They're not in a racing mecca like in Winston-Salem. They're in Ontario, where racing is as low on the totem pole as possible. And in fact, it's going to continue to struggle, because unless they continue to do stuff for the community and help the community out, people don't like it. They don't like noise. They don't like people coming in, just getting drunk on the property, making all sorts of noise. You've got so many things that you have to be aware of. And when we talked about this, drivers, for the most part, I think they get over it. It happens. You're going to have guys that were best friends that get into a wreck and then they don't like each other. You have teammates it happens all the time. We have what I call the anger pole at Peterborough in the pit entrance parking lot. I send my kid out there for a timeout. It's exactly what you need to do. Walk out, walk back, usually enough to get in better headspace. The situation of the weekend, that didn't happen. The driver, there was a driver that got out and was just so angry and did stuff that that in another time he wouldn't have done that. But again, like I said, there was what, 20 junior late models there. We don't need those junior late model racers to be doing stuff like that. Now, whether they were there, I think they were there on the Saturday, not the Sunday. But again, let's not be teaching the young racers to act that way. A contact happens. What I'll see and what I really appreciate at Peterborough is those kids are, and I've said it before, but those kids are some of the best in terms of support. They're hanging out with each other. They are going to victory lane for their friends, even when they don't win. I think a lot of it does come down to the parent situation. And you got to stay cool. You got to stay relaxed. It's easy to get upset. And unfortunately, if the kids are getting upset and don't know what to do with that, it's going to cause issues. If we ever get to a point where we've got junior late model racers that are fighting each other, then we've failed. obviously you're going to have some people that, oh yeah, that's great, shows character, it shows the kids doing great thing and, sticking up for themselves. There's ways to go about it. You know, it shows a lot more to be able to deal with frustration and anger than to act on it. And for the weekend, I mean, at sunset, let's be honest, it's a stacked night. It's a lot of stuff you got to get through. Um, you're gonna have situations, and I'm not going out there and I'm saying like that this is a huge problem everywhere we go, and um, people are just they're just terrible for the most part. Like I said, a lot of people that got into shenanigans this weekend, they raced on the same track in the same division all season long, and they were completely fine. All you have is weekends like this where sometimes just people come together, and I want hopefully those two racers, that they can talk with the people that they're upset with, uh, and move on. The biggest thing is to move on, because at the end of the day, if you're going to continue to harbor frustration and anger at a driver, all it does is hurt you. Your focus. You're not focused on the racing, you're focused on beating that driver or wrecking that driver. And that's not doing your racing and your partnerships any service. Sam Moore mentions 18 junior late model racers, nothing more than a single spin. I'm telling you, we've got talent in those divisions. There's a lot of good kids, a lot of very marketable kids, and I'm very impressed with a lot of what we've seen this year. A lot of kids that do a lot of great things for the racing community, for their local community. You talk about kids that, you know what? Talk about Josh Davenport. That kid is talented, just like the Cole Camrath, who won the championships before him. You got and you got Jake Spencer Walt moving into the legend cars. All these kids that are they're moving up, and they're doing it really quickly. I really think Ryland Camrath is the future there, the junior late model division right now. He to me really does seem like he's gonna win next year. You can see it. And he's so young too. Maya Ford didn't get a ton of time out there this year, but she also very impressive this year in her growth. Not getting lapped a good portion of her races. And remember when she first got out there, she was getting lapped multiple times. So she definitely got better. The Peterborough racers, my goodness. There's a whack of them that are extremely impressive. Chase Stevenson, I've mentioned before on this show. The Sellers boys, Landon and Hudson, very impressive. The Cousineaus, the Finnegan, Lucas Finnegan, Austin Finnegan, Lila Sigma, Avery Kirkpatrick. I like what they're doing there at Peterborough, where they actually put together a division that you start out with and then you can move into. Hannah Lamont mentions, I work at Grand Bend Speedway, and this past Saturday I had a lot of younger racers from over there come and see me and wish me luck. And you're right, we should be more examples for the younger ones. It's true. Absolutely 100%, because those are the kids that are going to move into those cars in the future. They're the ones that are going to see the conduct being done. And what do kids like to do? They mimic. That's what happens. They mimic behavior. You go with what you know and what you do. Kids flipping the finger, you don't learn just how to flip the finger unless you see it. That's a learned behavior. Swearing at kids, swearing at people, that's learned behavior. Right? It's all about how you're taught, how you race. And guess what? The more and more that you see people doing stuff of that nature, the more and more people are going to do it. I said, leave officials out of it. Leave track officials out of it, flagmen out of it, ambulance workers, safety crew, photographers. That's another thing that really, really annoyed me was some of the disrespect for some of the photographers. They're the ones that are taking pictures. They're the ones that are in charge. Don't disrespect them by telling them how they should be doing it. Yeah, there you go. Yep, kids look up way more than people think. Matt Bray, I like to go down and meet the kids that have never raced. I go down and show them all the flags and tell them what they all mean. I think I've seen it before where you've had kids up there that have actually waved the flag. People need to remember that is what is going to keep racing going, not the people already in it. You need future. And those young ones that are going to the racetrack are going to go there and see their friends race. You look at like the cheering section I've seen for Morgan Moore and for Avery Kirkpatrick and you know, Calvin points out that some of the drivers need to know what the flag means. That's true too. It's what I think Sunset has done very well this year and what I want to compliment them on. Tracks, Ray Morneau was a perfect example, Nathaniel. Tracks all around involve the kids as much as possible. Whatever you can do to give them free stuff, give them contests. Yeah, the bike races are nice. The kids ride-alongs are nice, but getting them involved. A perfect example is Brendan Doherty has a kid announcing with him. He has Nolan announcing with him at for the junior late models. The kids are the ones that are going to learn, the ones that are going to become racing fans. Yes, you're already going to have a lot of people that are already into racing, but there's a ton of people who've never seen it before. People from all over Ontario that have never seen motorsports. And what do we want to show them? Do we want to show them a community that's welcoming, encouraging of each other, that helps each other out? Or do we want to show them people fighting, swearing at each other, wrecking each other on purpose, flipping the finger to each other, trying to fight, throw stuff at people? Like, what is it that we want to show? That's a good one, actually. I like the idea that Matt Bray has to draw for the kids to come up and wave the green flag. I love that. That's a great idea. I'll admit last Saturday wasn't the best night. I got into a wreck, but I never blame anyone. I accept the fact that stuff happens and I move on. I was upset about the car and tried to save it, but that's the part of racing. Wrecks happen. They do. My son brought his buddy out and had never been before, and he thought it was awesome. He couldn't believe Keegan wanted back out there. Yeah. I know I've seen like Morgan's had some of her friends out there, and it's just people that you probably would never know. I'm an adult, and I've been given the opportunity to get in the pace truck, and I am stoked. Absolutely, I'm a podcaster, Ashley, and I get it. Getting to take video of racers coming out of their car and celebrating is something that I've always wanted to do. And I'm stoked when I get to see that. And getting to see drivers get their first wins. Michael Robinson was one of the kids this past weekend that got his first win in the non-winners race, and Wyatt Sutcliffe was running him down and tried to get there, and he couldn't. But Austin Janet finally getting that redemption after a tech issue um, resulted in a DQ of his win in the bone stock division. A great race between um, the Ontario Sportsman Series, Corey McAllister and Connor James teammates, Ollie Ferguson coming through there, finishing third. It is there's a lot of great stuff that we tend to talk about, and we don't want to miss out. And we've got one more big weekend here. Full Throttle Motor Speedway's second half of their championship night with fireworks are happening this Saturday, the 28th. You also will have Flamborough Speedway has their championship night as well. We don't have a ton of racing happening, but you also got Apple Fest for Brighton Speedway. Get out there and support as much as you possibly can. Then we get ready for Frosttoberfest, first week of October, and then we also look forward to the Autumn Colors Classic, the 11th to 13th of October. I have been your host for ONTrack Weekly, Cam K. Of course, you can always check us out. The Stickers and Scuffs podcast releases every Wednesday at noon. We will have Flamborough Speedway Pure Stock racer Spencer Riddell as the guest this week, as he looks to win the Pure Stock Championship. I'm going to just take a quick look. I got to be there for both Carlys, so it was great to see the SKLD. That's one of those things that I put down there, as I know not everybody knows all the backstories, but one of the things that I really love is redemption stories. And whether you're a fan of SKLD or not, I don't care. This story is a great story, and I love it. They started off first practice of the season in the mini stock. They got a brand new motor, I believe it was, in their mini stock for Austin Janet. And the first practice of the season, the motor's blown, and they don't have the money to replace it. Season's killed. First practice, the first weekend of the year. But they didn't give up. They went to running the pure stocks at and as you can tell, they didn't have a wrap or anything like that on their car. They taped numbers on there. They stuck some logos on there, and went out there and they struggled. They could not for the life of them find the issues with Carly's car and figure out the issues with Austin and Carly's cars, and then they did, and went out there these last 2 weekends and gave it to everybody in the pure stock field, and ended it off with a win. And when you start the season in such an awful way and end it in such a positive way, stories like that's what you like to hear. I love hearing stuff like that. Great stories all around. My dad was one of them. Went out one night. My uncle's bone stock won the heat, won the feature, got DQ'd for a spring rubber, and went back out in the same car and won the feature at Delaware. There you go. I talked about, again, Chase Stevenson's first junior late model win. I'll always remember, because he wasn't feeling well. He had migraine, got spun in his heat. They've been having mechanical problems the whole season. Came off the track, didn't even finish the heat, started last, made his way through from the last place on the grid, got up to his buddy Keegan Moe. They made contact. Keegan crashed. He had to do a restart and was able to hold on and get his first win. And the relief on that kid when he came out of there and he just said, finally. It's those positive stories that we love to talk about here on the show. But unfortunately, we are going to have to talk about them next week because we are out of time for this week. Once again, thank you so much for tuning into G-Force TV. Make sure you're here tomorrow for Race Rivals Race Chat. Adam Ross, Clinton Jeffrey, the entire crew, G-Force TV. Thank you, Spencer Mullen. Thank you, everybody that tuned in tonight. We have always engaging conversations, and that's what we want to do here on this show. Share, like, come on by each and every week. We are going well into the off season. We really appreciate you guys tuning in each and every night. Thank you, Austin, Janet. I keep messing up your last name, Austin, for the intro. Have yourselves a great night, and let's look forward to one last championship weekend across Ontario.